Hey, welcome back. I'm using a different camera here. Hope you don't mind. This one doesn't zoom in as much, but you can see more. Um, so I think I'm going to try to do shorter videos like this so I can take time to read the rulebook without making you just watch me read. But also at the same token, I was only able to read for so long, and then it's like, dang it, I just need to play the game because there's 100 things. I'm not going to remember them all. So I do have some answers for you, though, that have nothing to do with the step we're on. That is the SITREP report. Okay, so the error alert assessment is level 2, which I don't have a strong feel for that. But what I do have a strong feel for is that Treelu is going to be who launches. So remember, we put our surveillance team over here. We chose to surveil this one because we just didn't know where to go. The only place to go is here. We know that only Treelu is going to launch. So those Canberras are the only thing that could possibly come after us this turn. Okay? None of the other ones are going to launch. So the probability of which... so I guess in other cards, you're going to see multiple places listed, and then there's going to be a die roll, right, on which of the places are going to launch their planes. Right now, it's Treelu or nothing, okay? It doesn't matter what you roll, you're getting a Treelu, okay? And I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong. This light AEA means that only one possible plane is going to come after you. So there's only going to be one raid. So if the planes are coming after you, it's going to be one, okay, and only one. There's not going to be more than one. That's the air effort assessment. And I think the air alert assessment, this is a die roll, and if you get, you have to get this or lower in order for them to even launch. And that's all explained, by the way, in the early section here, right before we set up the SAS marker. So I'm going to look real quick. So the air alert assessment, so you're going to do a scramble roll. And if it's equal to or greater than the air alert assessment, then the Argentine Navy and the Air Force stand down. Both do. So this is whether or not they detect you. So they have to detect you in order to even come after you, okay? So if they don't, geez, I keep dropping it. But if they don't detect you, then there's nothing to go after. So we're going to do this thing called a scramble roll. And there's a scramble modifier over here. And you can see it starts the game on 0. And so you're going to roll, I believe it's a D10. Let's see here. Yeah, you roll a 1d10. It's just that simple. You're going to roll a 1d10, and then you're going to add the scramble modifier, whatever that is. Right now it's a 0. And then you're going to compare it to the air alert assessment number on your SITREP card. And so if it's a 2 or greater, equal to or greater, they stand down. So only a roll of a 1 is going to result in them trying to intercept us at this time. And if they do intercept us, it's going to be from Treelu, because that's the next step you would do, is you would roll where they're coming from, right? And then it's only going to be one raid. It's possible they could have more than one. But that's what the SITREP card is helping us to understand. And remember, we were saying, gosh, we don't know. So like, I'm at a spot now where, I'm looking at this situation, and I'm going to renege my decision, and I'm not going to launch any Harriers at this time, because I actually think I'm okay. I don't need to have a cap out at the moment, okay? So now the next thing, though, is let's say that they were to do a raid, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of the game. We're not at this part of the turn yet, but the rules that I read, I was getting into this and trying to understand what this SITREP card meant, and so I was reading other sections. There's this Ascension Island. Oh, no, not that. Is it Ascension Island? It must be. There's Ascension Island has the Americans are able to help the British intercept. So when the Argentinians launch their air force, the British have to detect it, and so they have several ways of detecting. One is that SAS team there, right? If you have the SAS team on the correct location, like we would in this case, because there's only one location they would launch from, that's one of the ways you can detect. But the way the detection works is some detection methods are concrete, meaning they're awesome, and they give you a high level of detail, and you can actually scramble Harriers. So you're actually going to launch Harriers, and they're going to know exactly where the target is, and they're going to be able to go directly towards it. Okay. Now the American, I can't remember what it's called, but the Americans have some ability to detect them. And you roll a die, and if you get a 1 or a 2, then you've successfully done it. I think it's a 6-sided. I have to check again. I apologize. But that's one of the ways. There's also a Soviet satellite that can help you. And then there's another way you can detect. There's the Chilean surveillance. Each one of them gradually reduces the amount of information you're going to have. So, like, for example, I think the Chilean one, you can launch your Harriers to scramble, but you don't know where, you're not going to be able to hone in on your target. You don't know exactly where the target is, but you do at least know a little bit of information. And then, of course, if you end up not detecting it at all, then they're just going to pop up, and now you're relying on your ships to detect it. So there's a lot of if-then-elses, okay? And I read through all of it, and you can already see that I'm literally starting this video 5 minutes after reading it, and I'm already forgetting all the details. This game just has a lot of that, and I think you're just going to have the rule book out, and the rule book does go step by step. If this, then that. If this, then that. And so we're just going to go through that. But we can be at least a little smarter. So the first step of being smarter is I'm not launching any Harriers on Cap right now, because I'm looking at this situation, and we only have a 1 in 10 chance they're even going to launch planes at us this round. So I'm going to hold off, okay? And even if they did launch, we know that there's one and only one location they can launch from, and we have the SAS team there, so we are going to get some level of intelligence from them. And so that way we could scramble our Harriers. So I don't need to have a Cap patrol, I can just scramble, right? So that's my logic, is I can be a little conservative with my planes and keep them for a later turn, okay? So none of that had anything to do with the step we were on. But I still thought it was very interesting and wanted to express that to you. Okay, so where were we at? We were on the Argentine naval deployment. That's the step we're at. You can see here we had, Cap placement and the SAS marker placement, but we have to do the submarine deployment role. Okay, so I checked that out, and then there's a surface group readiness and then surface group deployment. I can tell you with certainty there is no surface deployment happening. Well, we can check real quick, but here's the way it's going to work. We are going to take 3 1D4s, or 3 D4s. I call them 1D4s. Sorry, bad habit. Okay, it doesn't matter what color at the moment. So for each submarine, we're going to roll 3, and we don't want to roll a 1. That's the thing. If we roll 1, they're going to deploy and get out into the sea and cause us some trouble. Okay, if we don't roll any 1s at all, then they're skipped for this turn. Okay, so there are 2 submarines in Puerto Belgrano right now. So we're going to do this twice. Okay, so we got Era and Lewis, and we're going to start with that one first. Okay, so these are hard to pick up. They're like Kung Pao Enter the Fist, where they're trying to get the little triangle out of Betty. I love that movie. All right. So I got a 3, a 3, and a 4. Okay. So nothing happens. Now, what would happen if there was a 1? Well, if there's only one 1, they would be coastal. If there was 2 1s, they would be search. And if all 3 of them were 1s, they would be in the exclusion zone. Okay? So that's how this works. But this one is staying in port. And then we go to this one. And I got a 3, a 2, and I did get a 1. So this one is going to be in the coastal. So we might potentially have a combat. Okay? So this guy goes back and he will be ready for next turn. They'll try again. It'll just every turn. Now this ready for war box, I think that's just for when they're done, you know, patrolling, like this one that's patrolling, he would come here. And then at the end of this particular phase, any ship that's here moves to there, okay? Only the ships that are here actually go out to sea. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna see if these 3 units are going to get into deploy zone. So they're currently being withheld, and we're gonna roll for each one to determine if they go into port. Okay, so I just need to look up the section again. It's 13.3. Okay, so here you can see if there's no 1s rolled, the submarine remains in the current location, and then anything that's ready to war goes back to the box, okay? So now for here, we're gonna roll 1d4, a 1d6, and a 1d8, okay? That's to determine if these groups are gonna make it into the game. Once they come into the game, we can skip this step, because this is only, you know, we're gonna do this every single turn until they actually enter the game. And only on a result of a 1 does it become ready for war. And it's going to go into the ready for war box. And then after the rolls, everybody else remains off board. Okay? And then it's basically turn is over for them. And then it says if there's any that are in port, they now prepare to go hunt the Royal Navy. And we would do that step. But remember, they go into the ready for war box. And then only at the end of this phase do they move to the port. So they're not going to be hunting us this turn. The best that they're going to be able to do is get into the ready for war box. Does that make sense? So it seems pretty straightforward. So I'm going to grab a 4, a 6, and an 8. I think that's the 3. So this is the carrier group. The 8 is. The 6 is the battle group, and then this is a patrol group. So obviously, if you just use your basic math, this has the highest probability of coming after us first, with this one having the lowest probability. But it's the thing with dice roll, they're always tricky. So anything other than a 1 is good. And look at this. We rolled a 1 already. So, but that one's a 2, and this one's a 7. So the battle group is coming out. I'm going to just make a guess that this is a bad start to the game. But anyways, battle group's there. Everybody else stays off the board for now. Okay, so once these rolls are all completed, then anything from the ready to war box moves over. So we would do deployment of these ships if they were here. There's nobody here, so we skip that phase. So now this is moving over, and it's with the submarine now. Okay? So that, my friends, is the Argentine deploy step, which is F here. So we just finished F. So now we're going to go to G. Submarine versus submarine combat. I started to read this, and then I started to glaze over and fall asleep. So this was where I decided, you know what, we're just going to play. So, so I'm going to lay down the rule book here and try to be mindful of our carrier tokens. And we're starting on section 13.5, which is here. So, so this replicates the phase of them hunting each other. First, we look at the naval patrol boxes. that contain both. And then those are contested, and that would be the coastal box. That's the only one that's contested right now. For each British submarine in the contested box, roll 1 die of the value indicated on the detection roll section of the combat chart. So let's go look up the combat chart here. There's naval attack resolution. There's, oh, look at this. Argentine submarine deployment table right there. That's pretty cool. This is the readiness one that we just did, so I had to look that up, right, and it was right here. There's the deployment table for the task group, which would be the naval ships. There's a, okay, this San Carlos thing, by the way, is this. This is actually invading the island, okay? So that's what the San Carlos stuff is. And then we have the rule of engagement table, which I don't think that's what we're doing. We're looking at roll 1 die of the value indicated on the detection roll section of the combat chart. So where's the, oh, this is the combat chart. Oh, okay, so detection roll is here. And you can see there's subs, and then these are Argentinian ships. So if we're a sub, I think the black number, I don't know what I'm looking at here. So we have a black number and a red number. What does that mean? So let's figure this out. The ship, the sub itself, like the Splendid here. See, if you flip it over, it actually has the combat chart on the back. See how it has the 4, 6, 8, 6, 8, 10? So it's pretty interesting. I mean, you don't need the combat chart per se. You can just flip over the tile. But let's keep reading, and maybe it'll tell us what these numbers mean. Okay, here it says, yeah, cross-reference the appropriate red-numbered naval patrol column with the British submarine row. For example, a British submarine attempting to detect an Argentine submarine in the search zone would roll 1d8. Okay, so let's see if we can figure this out. So this is our sub, and then that's the Argentinian sub. Here's the coastal. Yep, we're at the coastal. So that's how I would get 1d8. So I guess we don't look at our sub, we're just looking at theirs. So we would do a 1d8 because that's the red number. Okay, so then what does this 10 mean? And if the detection had been attempted in a coastal zone, it would have been a 1d6. Oh, hold on. If it had been an Argentine submarine in a search zone, it would have been a 1d8. And if it was in a coastal zone, it would have been a 1d6. So we got to go back to this. Oh, here we go. So this is our sub, 1d6. So we do use our sub. So we're trying to detect them, and we get to roll 1d6 because it's coastal. So that means, hopefully, that we have better odds. For each one that is rolled, one Argentine submarine has been detected. For each one rolled, place an Argentine submarine and a detecting British submarine in a combat display. Your choice as to which. Okay, so we have 2 of our subs. And let me check. I'm just looking ahead here. So it's saying do the British submarines first, and then repeat the detection process for Argentine submarines that are still remaining. Using the row for the Argentine, yes. So we are reading this correctly. So we have 2 submarines here, as you can see. We have 2. So we're gonna roll 2d6, like this, and if we roll 1s, we detect it. Oh my gosh, I see a 1 already, and the other one's a 6. So I don't think it matters which sub is which, but we now go to the combat table, and I have no idea how to use the combat table, but we do have one. So let me bring you back over here. For each one Argentine submarine has been detected. Each one rolled, you place a detected Argentine and a detecting on the combat display. Your choice as to which. Okay, the combat display is this hokey thing over here. So I have no idea, what you do, but I'm going to assume we're going to put the British submarine there and the Argentinian one there. I don't know what the different boxes mean, but we'll just leave it be at that. And let's keep reading. Each British submarine on the combat display can now attack one detected Argentine submarine. I was just reading to see if I can have both submarines attack them. And I think the answer is no. The other submarine would have had to have detected someone as well. So it is just going to be a 1 versus 1 here. For each attack, roll 1 die as indicated on the red numbered versus submarine attack roll column of the combat chart. In this case, a British submarine attacking an Argentinian submarine. Okay, let's look at the chart again. So this is the detection roll. And I guess this is, right here, way up at the top. Attack roll. See where it says attack roll there? All rolls of 1 are a hit. So we're a British sub. So the red number tells us to roll 1d6. And I don't know what the 4 is. Let me look. It says versus, and see how it shows red and then gray? So how do I know if I'm versus red or versus gray? Let me look real quick. It says red numbered. Okay, so it's very clear there in the rule book that a red number is versus submarine. Okay, so in this case it would be a 1d6, and that of course lines up with what we saw. If a 1 is rolled, the sub is destroyed. Remove it permanently from the game. If any other number is rolled, the submarine escapes the attack. Immediately consult the naval resolution chart to determine the outcome of the failed attack. All British submarines that were involved in the attack are now rotated 180 degrees, removed from the combat display, and placed back in a naval patrol box where they made the initial detection. Okay, so let's go ahead and roll and see if we get a 1. I did not. I got a 3. Okay, so then we have to look at, what does it say we need to look at? We need to look at the Naval Attack Resolution Chart. Okay, that is the back of the sequence of play. So this sequence of play here, if you flip it over, it's a Naval Attack Resolution Chart. And Table A is British subs versus Argentine vessels. Table B is Argentine vessels versus British. So we rolled a 3. No, we're going to have to roll again, aren't we? Roll a D12. Okay, and see it's capital D again. So, whoops. And I rolled an 11. I don't know if that's good or bad. Let's find out. SSN, so we're doing the left side because we're attacking them. SSN attempts to obtain confirmation of ROE, cannot establish communications, attack postponed, Argentine vessel returned to originating naval patrol box. So nothing happened. Okay, so both of the subs return back to this coastal box. Okay. And then it says rotate it by 180 degrees. I don't know what that means or why that's important, but I'm just going to flip it upside down. Okay, number 4. When rolls have been made for all the British subs, repeat for any Argentine remaining, naturally using their box. As before, detected British subs and the Argentine subs are also placed on the combat display. Once all detection rolls have been made, Argentine subs can now attack. Detected, repeat the process outlined above, this time using the Argentine submarine row, and they roll 1d10. Remove all surviving British subs from the combat, placing them back in their box. Rotate them 180 degrees to indicate they cannot engage Argentine task groups this turn. The submarine is too busy attacking or okay, that's where you rotate them. Remove all surviving Argentine subs from the combat, place them back in the ready for war box. Argentine naval assets were ordered to adopt a conservative strategy. Okay, fair enough. All right, so let's do this. Let's do this the other way, right? We can flip this over, and this is coastal. These are the 3 patrol boxes, right? So we're in the leftmost control box, and so we got to roll 1d8 for him to see if he detects. So that's a d10. Here's a d8. So I rolled a 2. He does not detect. So then we just skip him. And here you can see he would roll 1d10 for the combat. So see that little 10 there? He would roll 1d10 for combat. So we don't have to use the chart, although the chart is very, very well done if you look at it. The same information, of course, is here. Roll 1d8. We didn't detect anything, but if we did detect, then he would roll 1d10. Okay, so same information, 2 different places. That's pretty cool. I really like when companies do stuff like that. I have no issue with that at all. I like them giving us options. Okay, so now what it does say though is now that this is all done, even though, so this sub didn't detect anybody, so he's still able to attack surface fleets. There's no surface fleets to attack, but just for the purposes of the rules, just understand this one didn't rotate 180 degrees yet. Okay, this sub is going back to the ready for war box. So I think it's going to be like another, like tomorrow, the next day, he's just going to simply move over. So it's going to take like 2 days for him to come back out again. Okay, so we did all that and we made it through the sub step. So that's submarine versus submarine combat. Item G. So now British submarine versus Argentine surface group combat ensues. That's 13.6. So we do a search roll, an ROE roll, etc., etc. I don't think we do anything because there's no surface fleet out. Those surface fleets, by the way, would also go here, okay? So they would be in these same 3 boxes. And so these submarines that are in those boxes would do similar types of checks. So we're going to skip that whole section for now because there's nobody out there. I will look at 13.6 just to make sure I'm doing this right. So unrotated submarines may now attempt detection in a contested box. Correct. So it's got to be a box where there's a naval fleet in the same box contesting them. So we're going to skip that. Okay, so now we move on to I here, where it says Argentine surface group versus British submarine. Okay, nothing's happening there. Argentine Navy versus task force combat. We're skipping J. There's no Navy out. Scramble, surveillance, and early warning. So this part we are going to do. So we got to do the scramble roll, and that's 5-1. And we sort of had a sneak peek into that because I was already, going there. So I'm going to go ahead and go to 5.1. And that scramble roll is a 1d10. And like we said, you need a 1 because even though the level is 2, if you equal it, it's still a stand down situation. Okay, so I rolled a 5, so nothing's happening, and it's basically you're done. You skip the whole section. So there's no scramble. The surveillance is us. Nimrod, by the way, is the USA thing. It's the Nimrod early detection. SAS, of course, is our thing. Chilean is next, and then if you have nothing, then we can scramble our Harriers. Then Argentine Air Force targeting. This is them targeting who they're going to hit amongst us. But there's nobody launching. There's nothing. Okay, so we're skipping all this. We're skipping air-to-air combat. We're skipping surface-to-air. And then the Exocet and standard bomb run. All of this is being skipped. I think we're at the end of the turn. So we go to the very end of the turn. Harrier recovery. Okay, so let me pick up the rule book here. If I did send those Harriers out for cap or interception, what they do is they go into the flown box. Okay, that's where they would end this turn. And then let's So that's Harrier recovery. And then Harrier refitting, which is the next step, is anything that's here moves up into ready box, and then anything that's in flown moves over, which means that if I sent this guy on cap, he would land here, then we would move those up, and then this would move over, okay? And then this, at the end of next turn, would move up, right? Because you lose a day, basically, to refit. All right, so then we remove the scramble marker, remove the naval detection marker, Harrier recovery. Those are all things that would be put out if they detected us, right? Or if they scrambled to, you know, if we're scrambling to intercept their Air Force. British submarine counter rotation. Ooh, I do need to check that section. Let's find out what that entails. Okay, I'm sorry, 13.5.6. All right. Rotating them back to normal at the end of the turn. That's all it says. All that looking up just to say, bloop, put them back. Okay, so they're back. Just like the McRib sandwich. Okay, so weather marker removed, and then we move to turn. We're back to the start of the round 2. So we just made it through one round of the game. Clearly, we just bypassed 90% of the rules, right? Because the air-to-air combat has like roll after roll after roll, air to ground, and then bombing runs, and you know, lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my! So this is just like Code Word Cromwell, where there's a lot of sections of rules, but they don't always trigger every turn, and so it's pretty cool. I'm liking this so far. This is a much more serious game than Code Word Cromwell. Cromwell, of course, was supposed to be a training exercise, so it had a lot of humor in it. Obviously, the villagers probably didn't find any humor in German panzers coming after them. It had a lot of tower defense feel to it, which I really like that part of Code Word Cromwell. The looking up the stories thing, in my opinion, was actually hard to keep track of sometimes. But anyways, this game I think came out first, and then Cromwell came out second. You can clearly tell it's the same designer. There's a lot of similarities, a lot of dice rolls with really low probabilities that anything actually happens. 1 out of 6 or 1 out of 8. He's really a big fan of that kind of stuff, and that's fine. That's just, that's what you're getting when you do this. So pretty cool so far. Without further ado, let's just roll into turn 2. So we're going to come back up here, and obviously, step 1, advance the turn marker. Oh, hold on, I got to do a rules check. Sorry, that's my bad humor for the day. So let's do weather again, 19.0. Where was the weather chart? I know I had one. Was it really in the rule book that I had to do the weather? It is. It's in the rule book, isn't it? Oh, that's awful. The weather should be right here. Okay, let me look it up again. Yeah, it is. It's in the rule book. Ugh. That should have been on these charts. That's awful. Absolutely awful. That's the one thing that should have been on a chart or something. Or even on the game board. I mean, look at all that space on the game board. They could have put it right there. Yeah, that's a little lame. Okay. So we got to roll capital D12. And you can see I rolled a 6 again, which means there's no effect. So weather still doesn't impact us at all. So we skipped that yet again. I'm not complaining, I'm just, you know, there's a whole section of rules I'm not going to get to be able to show you. So next we do the events. So let's draw our next event, see what that says. And we got a San Carlos event card. So now this is something new. So let's look up what that does in the rules, because we skipped that last time. San Carlos event. That's section 16. All right. Okay, so if it's in a San Carlos, it's resolved in the following way. On the turn you decide to launch the San Carlos landings, immediately after the placement of, you may choose to conduct reconnaissance of the landing zones. Pick one or more warships and place them in any San Carlos event cards that are currently face down on the board. Oh, that's right, you're supposed to put it face down. I'll put it right over the island there to show that we have a San Carlos event. They get dispatched to directly survey the waters around the landing area. You roll 1d8 for each vessel placed on a card. If you roll a 1, the vessel is intercepted by the Argentine forces and destroyed. Oh my gosh. And then landings get their first casualties. Once the die rolls have been completed, remove the surviving vessels. Place them on the turn track, one space on from the turn marker. This is to indicate that they can rejoin the task force. Now that the 5 place the... Okay, this is all stuff that happens when we do landings. And we're not allowed to do landings until at minimum, and this is in the rules, May 21st. Even if we get to the SITREP card before May 21st, it says you have to wait until May 21st, okay? So next is this SITREP card is out of the game. We discard this, and then we draw the next one, which, now what I'm trying to understand is, we drew an event card that's for this. I think I need to read closer. Like, why do I want to risk my ships getting destroyed? There's got to be some benefit to having this event that allows me to survey the land, and I just probably didn't read far enough to figure that out. Okay, so we're still level 2, which is a really low level of intercept. It's still Trilu 1 to 10, and it's still light. So we're still pretty far away, and Argentina hasn't detected us yet. So if we jump to task force deployment, I'm going to leave them exactly where they are. We do cap placement, British submarine placement, and so I still have this situation where, you know, it's 2 and 1. I'm tempted to even do this for now. Yeah, I'm going to do that. And then the SAS marker is going to stay on Trilo, because if you remember, Trilo is still the only one listed. And we got to do Argentine naval deployment. This is where we roll for the subs. So there's only one sub that can possibly deploy. So we're going to roll for that one first. One, Kung Pao, Betty. I can't get my fingers to get on the thing. All right, so this is for the sub, 3, 3, and 4. So that sub doesn't even come out. Okay, so now we got to roll for the surface group readiness and then surface group deployment. Okay, so the surface group, I'm going to grab them. Yeah, it doesn't show there, but we found that our little handy dandy chart has it though. So the readiness table, right now we have the D4 and the D8 still, because this guy's already ready. So already ready, Freddy. So we have a D4 and a D8. Let's roll those. I got a 4 here and a 3 there, so nobody comes out. But now we're going to do the task group deployment, and this time it's a 3d6 to see if that battleship, that battle fleet's coming out. And it's the same deal. The number of 1s dictates which box it goes in. Oh my gosh, we got a 1. So the battleship is coming out, and he's going to be coastal right there. And then at the end of this phase, this sub is moving back into the box. Okay, well, we're going to possibly have all 3 of our subs are going to possibly engage the battle group there. And so after naval deployment, it's submarine versus submarine, and I apologize for the fuzziness there. Dang camera. There we go. Okay, so submarine versus submarine is come and gone. We're skipping that because they don't have any submarines. So here it's British submarine versus Argentine surface group, 13.6. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and look up 13.6 and see how this resolves. This is something new. And thanks for watching. As always, stay awesome, and we'll see you in a few minutes.